There are a couple of cases I get mixed up on.
Mm-hmm.
But one name that keeps coming up is this woman Singer. She lives in an apartment building that is real close to your house. It's also close to the field where you found the ear.
It's a strange world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know where this woman's apartment building is?
Yeah, it's really close by. That's what's so creepy. They had her under surveillance for a couple months, except I don't know what they found out, because it's not my dad's case. So...
I guess you gotta get back home pretty soon, huh?
not really. Why?
Well,
You want to see the building?
yeah.
Come on, I'll show you.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Film Bros podcast. My name is Isaiah Lucas, and I am joined by my co-host,
Nick. That's all we got today.
It's just us.
Yeah, it's strange, man. I'm waiting for his cadence to so I know how to talk.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Abraham and Nick.
You're gonna cloud him when he's not here to defend himself.
He'll see it on the episode. He's gonna be like, man.
He's gonna be like, oh, you guys did me dirty.
Yeah. Abe's not with us today, unfortunately. He got tied up at work. It's the holiday season.
And just
But
working him to the bone.
yeah, so
It's fitting for the businessman, though, right?
Yeah, that's
So-
true. Yeah, he's doing tons of OT, and he unfortunately could not watch the movie and couldn't make the recording of the episode. So
Yeah.
he will be dearly missed, but
Mhm.
more than likely he will be back with us next week. So if you come for Abe, this may
Sorry,
not be the episode for you.
you got to
but-
deal with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, we can carry it along without him here.
Yeah, most
Um,
definitely.
So
So
what are we talking about today?
we're talking about a movie that was revealed last episode that is a first for you. It would have been a first for him as well.
Yes.
But it is a movie called Blue Velvet. It is written and directed by a man named David Lynch. And yeah, it's a weird, wild ride. It's a strange world.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's my first time watching this movie. Also, my first time in his filmography. I think this
Okay.
is his fourth one now, right? I think I read that somewhere.
Possibly. I'm not entirely. I know his movies, but I don't know like the chronology of
Right.
them.
I am very thankful that you gave me some background as to his film style
Yeah.
and how just, I want to say over the top and
Yeah.
kind of just very
Surreal.
surreal, vague, strange,
Yeah.
wild,
Mm-hmm.
not giving you answers at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think going into that with that information, I was very much prepared and ready to see all that this movie had for me. I mean, I literally knew, we talked about it last week, it was a crime drama.
Yeah.
So I knew that going into it and that there was something to do with an ear.
Yeah.
And I got way more than I was expecting.
Okay.
I really, really, truly did. I really don't know what I was expecting, to be honest.
Okay.
Maybe kind of like a whodunit style.
Yeah.
And it was more just watching pretty much a villain
Yeah.
kind of getting like dethroned pretty
Mhm.
much, and how he built his empire and how it kind of
crumbled.
turns against him at the end.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. And this is kind of the movie where if you're not ready for it, it'll catch you off guard.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things I think about David Lynch's movies just in general, that they're going to be weird. They're going to be off the wall, but that's all a part of his style
It
and
is.
what makes him unique. And that's why I think he's so prolific, is he's got just this insanely unique mind and way of seeing things and portraying things on screen where, you know, they make sense to him and he's able to articulate it and make it make sense to other people.
Mhm.
And it's kind of up to the audience to dissect that and understand what it is that he's trying to say with his films.
Right. Talk to me about the first time you watched this. And I'm wondering if you felt the same way I did.
Yeah,
Where I
so-
kind of was just left like,
Yeah. So
I liked it, but I don't know why.
Yeah, so I talked about the first time I ever watched anything from David Lynch last episode, which was a short film I saw on YouTube called The Rabbits.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Just gonna look at the thumbnail here. But
Oh
I'm not
man,
gonna watch
like,
it.
it is strange. Like I watched it and I was just like, what the heck is going on? Like this is eerie. It's creepy. I don't understand what's going on. There's like random laugh tracks that come in out of nowhere. Nothing funny happened. Like,
Oh, really? It's just,
yeah, like it's strange. I
it
was
is 42 minutes.
yeah, and I was like, what the heck is this? Like,
You watched all of it?
yeah,
Oh wow.
and it was strange, and it was like like I was scared watching it. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like I'm nervous. I don't know why. Like I'm not understanding. And then I watched Eraserhead at work one time, and that entire time too, I was just like, what the heck is going on? Like he's showing me things on screen. I'm getting creeped out by this woman singing this weird eerie song. There's this weird baby creature that's puking, and like it's strange. Like I'm just like, it's weird. And then but the thing about his movies that got me, I think, is like the same thing with the way that like I get intrigued by things that are different or weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have the same thing with an artist called Death Grips. They're like a experimental rap group. And like, yeah, and like when I first heard them, I was like, what the heck? This is so strange. Like it goes, guillotine.
Yeah.
But then I would slowly be like, get stuck in my head. And then I'd be like, I'm gonna go back to that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see a little bit more here. Okay, maybe I like this actually. I don't know why I like this, but I kind of do. It's interesting, right? And then I found myself, I'm like, listening to all the songs and rapping and doing all this stuff, and now I'm like, okay, yeah, like I kind of understand what they're going for here. But at first, to me, it was shocking and it was strange and weird. But then I found myself being intrigued by it and wanting to know more.
Yep, that's the zone I'm in now.
Yeah,
that's the zone I'm in now.
And I felt the same way with my viewing of Blue Velvet.
Okay.
When I watched it for the first time, I had picked this up on a half sale from Criterion, and I had watched Eraserhead, and I was like, okay, I had somebody tell me that Blue Velvet is like one of his more accessible movies, that it's more tame. It's not as surreal as his other films, and it's something that, you know, you can tell somebody to watch and it be a lot better of a result or better outcome than having them watch something like Eraserhead or Mulholland Drive or something like that.
A better probability that they'd
understand it and comprehend it.
Yeah,
and
at least somewhat. Yeah.
And so when I picked it up and I watched it by myself, and when I watched it, the entire time I was picking up on the themes and things that were going on throughout the film, but also still being like, what the heck is going to happen, though? Because I never know with this guy.
Right.
Like, is this scene where these two people are in this apartment going to turn into something insane, or like what's going to happen? What's going to happen with the film? I have no idea.
Right,
like, it could take any turn. I have no idea what to even expect from this guy, because he could just pull something out of his hat and be like, oh, this happens now. And I'd be like, yeah, I'd be like, that's not even what I expected to happen, you know? So I was definitely caught off guard, but by the end of the film, I found myself being able to kind of put together what the meaning of the film is, and how, you know, at the end, this movie is just all about how love essentially conquers all, and that love will triumph over any other emotion or characteristic about anybody. Right. And I found that theme even more prevalent the second time, and was able to even dive into things even more. And by the time I finished it the second time, I was excited to talk about it with you guys, because I was like, man, so that's why this character does this, and they say this at this certain point, and you know, that even the music that's played references to like these themes of love and all this stuff and everything, and it was really cool and really interesting, and I'm excited to dive into it with you.
I am too. I caught on to a couple things. Definitely not as deep as what we were talking about before recording. So I was kind of blown away at all the stuff that I missed, that I'm ready to talk about. But I was also surprised. It's for it being such a bleak movie, the ending is very like wholesome and uplifting. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that he decided to end the film in a more like
hopeful light.
Yeah, hopeful. We're in the daytime, in the nighttime with this beautiful family. Yeah, and it all feels like there's an actual wholesome theme to this, rather than just watching like the scum of the earth, and depravity. Because there are some movies, I think we've even done some here, where it's all just like,
it ends and then you're just like, that's it. Everything's all depravity, and you're just like, oh man, it's so heavy.
You feel like you just like waded through the gutters. Yeah, and you're at the end of it, you're in another mile of gutter. Yeah, and no, this one kind of You're there, you're walking through the gutter, and at the very end, there's someone reaching their hand out.
Yeah.
Or a bird with a beetle in its mouth.
Yeah.
All good, though. I really enjoyed the ending here. And I'm ready to talk about it.
Good.
So, what happens in this film, man?
Well, let's preface it by saying this movie is streaming on HBO Max. So if you want to check it out and you have that streaming service, go ahead and do so. And this will have heavy spoilers as always. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to do so, check it out on that streaming platform or rent it. Or Criterion's having their 50% off sale all throughout November. So
Oh, it's the whole month?
Yeah,
Nice.
a whole month of November. So if you're ever curious about potentially picking up something from Criterion, now would be the time to do so. I
Barnes and
recommend it.
Noble's
All their
gotcha.
movies are going to be $20 and possibly up instead of the $40, $50 price tag.
Right.
But yeah, check it out. I recommend it. It's a fun watch. It's something to definitely a starting point if you're ever curious about Mr. Lynch's work. And I would argue that I think the same thing I can say for Nick is true, that once you start, it kind of gets you into the mindset or headspace of this person, this director, and his style and his art, and then it will only push you further down the rabbit hole and be like, well, what else has this guy made?
Mulholland Drive is next. For me, at least.
So I'm excited to talk about it and dive in.
Rated R.
Yes, this movie is rated R. So if that is something that you have kind of conservations about or something like that, then maybe this might not be the movie for you.
Right.
But alas, we'll talk
dive
about
deep into it
as always. This movie is about a young man coming home from college named Jeffrey, and he goes to this small town of Lumberton, and his family and all this stuff has been, they've grown up here essentially, and he leaves for college. He comes back, and he only ever comes back because his dad has a freak accident.
Right.
And something happens to where he gets put in the hospital and he has to come home and try to, be with family while everything's going on here. And while he does come home from from college, he stumbles upon a severed ear. And it's very strange. No one ever knows, what is this thing? Why is it here? It's it's weird for this
field.
It's in a random field by this, in this quiet, quaint little white picket fence town.
Right.
Like it's, what you would think of small town America.
Mm-hmm.
And that finding of the severed ear leads into something completely more sinister. And what you feel is going to start out as this almost like a romantic comedy in the beginning divulges into something a lot more dark and a lot more crime ridden. And we get to see that this cute little town has this nasty underbelly. And we get to see basically that nasty underbelly exposed to us all, and that everything that we thought about this town is not what it seems.
No way. Not at all.
Yeah. So we'll start off with our first favorite scene. My first one is the intro. And I really do appreciate the intro to this film. It starts out by showcasing the town of Lumberton. And I think the first frame, it pans down, the camera pans down from the sky and shows these beautiful red roses and these white picket fences. And the music is playing. It feels very atmospheric and comforting, right? We start out and we're like, oh man, this looks nice. There's these nice flower beds. The guy in the fire truck is driving by waving, he's nice and neighborly to everybody. Kids are walking the street to school. People are in the comfort of their own home watching movies, and people are gardening and all this stuff. And this feels like, your average suburban town where nobody's got a care in the world. The only thing they got to do is, put in their 9 to 5 and come home and
dinner's on the table.
Yeah, enjoy time with their family.
The
all
weekends.
That stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it sets up the light that fades very quickly as this kid stumbles into the role. I'm convinced that he's like doing a detective work at school. He's got to be, right?
Something.
He's got to be something like that.
Yeah, but I love the build up that showing all these these things that we grow so comfortable with or get so comforted by, build up the notion that there's nothing that could ever go wrong here.
Right.
And that this is like a utopia. It is a place where no wrong could ever be done. And I almost feel like some people may feel like the town that we live in is like that. And that there's this is just a quiet little town. Like nothing had ever happened here with no, but then things happen and we're like, oh, there's things could happen here just like anywhere
Right.
else. It's
Didn't
kinda
even know
crazy, right?
they were capable of that.
Exactly.
For sure.
And then I love that, immediately we see this guy kind of watering his lawn, and then he's kind of like struggling with the with the water hose, and it's like wrapped around or something like that, and then something happens. I think he has like a heart attack or a stroke.
Is this the dad, right?
Yes, this ends up being Jeffrey's dad.
Okay, but we don't know that, and he just goes. It kind of looks like a Life Alert commercial, honestly.
Yeah.
You know how when they just go, oh.
Yeah.
Commercial.
Yeah. But he like is yanking on this hose and then goes, ah, and like reaches on his like the back of his neck and then just falls over.
Yes.
He's laying down.
Dude,
the water hose is streaming up. The dog's attacking the water.
I can't tell you how much I died laughing when I saw that dog.
The dog just go.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah,
it's because like this man is dying, and the dog is just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna bite that
Prancing on him.
hose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bite that hose. You really think, oh dog, go and get someone or try to to become like be a service dog.
Yeah.
And no, it's just like I'm gonna get that water.
Yeah.
The guy's literally dying on the floor.
Yeah.
I died.
And so immediately we get hit with a scene of abnormality.
Right.
And we're like, this doesn't fit here. Like we were getting presented with all these things that made us feel nice and made us feel comfortable, and then all of a sudden some guy plops dead on the floor,
Right.
or almost dead on the floor, and we're like, okay, what the heck is going on? Why is this happening? And then the camera starts to kind of zoom into the grass, and it's almost like the grass consumes the camera, and it gets just darker and darker and darker until we see just all these bugs and nastiness from under the ground just crawling all over one another. It's very violent looking and very eerie.
Mm-hmm.
And, the sound even kicks up, and it's like it's chaotic, and it's just like, all these things going on at once. And then all of a sudden it cuts back, and we get introduced to Jeffrey, who's just walking along, and come to find out that the person that had the heart attack was his dad. And, he's come home from college to be with him at this time. And
he's got like a neck brace on in the hospital.
Yeah, and he's having a bad time.
Right.
And Jeffrey, comes home to be with the family, and before discovering the severed ear in the field and getting so intrigued by what this could possibly be, or anything.
Yeah, that leads into my next favorite scene. He finds the ear and brings it to a Detective Williams,
Mm-hmm.
who ends up being the father to, I'll call her a love interest. Her name is
Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy, which is Laura Dern's character,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was super cool to see her here. I was not expecting that at all. He brings him the ear, and they are starting an investigation. He tells them to show him where he found the ear in the field, and they like do that grid search. And excuse me, my favorite scene is when it's that he goes out for a walk, or he goes on a walk with Sandy at night, and first off, the dialogue here, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's strange, and it almost seems like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like stiff,
Yeah.
but still kind of flowy off the tongue. Like it reminds me, like I was thankful you brought up Wes Anderson, because he has that same kind of. It's not exactly the same as David Lynch, but he has that dialogue style where you can't really describe it. You just have to listen to the flow of it to understand that it's not really how people talk.
Exactly.
But you would believe in that universe is how people would talk.
Exactly. In a Wes Anderson movie, everybody's talking like this, and they're able to understand everybody incredibly well,
right.
And like all this stuff. But then in a David Lynch film, they're like, I found an ear today,
and it's
interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what that ear could be.
There's very little emotion.
Yeah.
And even just the way that they like are trying to talk to each other, where he's like, hey, watch this. And he does like a dance. He's like a chicken dance.
Yeah.
And he just walks around.
Yeah.
He walks around and she goes, oh, interesting. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that you're expecting. And it's so against the grain of our reality.
Yeah.
And yet it still feels somewhat natural to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're jiving with it. They're thinking it's funny.
Yeah.
So you just kind of go along with it. But she ends up saying, well, my room is right above my dad's office, so I do hear a lot of the information about the cases. And I've heard a lot of the times they talk about a singer by the name of Dorothy Valens. and she could have something to do with that ear and that a connection to that. And he goes, oh, you could learn a lot of stuff from entering her apartment to see what's going on there. And she goes, oh, I know where it is. And of course, at night they go and they see the building.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I don't know what room it is, but it's the 7th floor.
Mm-hmm.
And where my favorite scene starts is the next scene they're at the diner together. And I really just enjoyed, he kind of seems soft-spoken.
Yeah.
And you don't really understand where his skills are, what his talents are, what he really enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
But in this scene, you kind of get a look into his personality.
Yeah.
Because he's really like, I have a plan.
Yeah.
And we're gonna break into this apartment. I'm gonna get in there. And of course, she's hesitant. She's like, all the plans you can say I'm here, but they're not leaving this diner. And he goes, oh, don't act like that. And they're kind of jiving together. And he talks about the whole plan of him acting like a bug man and getting in there in 3 minutes. She'll come and act like a Jehovah's Witness, and distract him, and he'll jimmy a window open so he can come in later.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really liked it. I liked seeing them at this diner talking about this, and you get to see a little bit more of Jeffrey here.
Yeah.
Because you don't know much about him until this point.
Yeah. It's even interesting seeing the scene that led up to the diner scene when he's at the hardware store.
Right.
And you get to see in that hardware store, he's literally preparing the spray. He already had the idea in mind, and he's just like, I'm just gonna get everything ready because she's gonna go along with it. I just know it.
Yeah, I went back to look at the scene to get more context because I was not paying attention at the time, and I was like, this guy had the plan the whole time.
Yeah, he literally even asks the guy, where are the coveralls at? The blind guy.
Yeah,
and he's like, row 5. Section H or something ridiculous like
where
that.
Where they always are.
And he's like, that's where they always are. And then he's like, man, it's just crazy how you do that. And he's like, how many fingers am I holding up? And of course the guy is blind and he's got a guy behind him. And then he just goes, he taps him 4 times.
You can tell too.
And then the guy goes, 4. And then he's all,
I don't
know how you do that. It's crazy.
Right.
It's interesting. And then we get to later on understand oh, that's why he was asking where the coveralls were at. That's what he was preparing. He's preparing the spray.
Right.
Now he's telling her about her plan to get her in on it.
Right.
And then later, enacts that plan.
Yeah, he's very detail oriented. And I even like the scene where he goes
to spray. Yeah,
it's very tense.
Yeah, it is, because we know that this guy has ulterior motives, and this woman has no idea who this person is as far as she's aware. At this point, he is a pest control guy.
Right.
And comes up, knocks on her door. Well, first we find out that the elevator to the apartment complex doesn't work.
Right.
So you got to use the stairs. So you got to climb all the way to the 7th floor to spray for bugs. He goes there and knocks on her door. And, she opens the door, reluctantly lets him in. He just sprays the kitchen. And while he's spraying, somebody comes in to knock on the door who he thinks is going to be Sandy.
Mm-mm.
But it ends up being somebody in a yellow coat who we come to find out he gets characterized as the Yellow Man.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got this bright yellow blazer on, and he just kind of comes in and looks around, never says anything, and then dips out of frame. And so immediately, the first time I watched this, I was like, who's this guy? Does he have anything to say? What's going to happen?
Right.
And then the door closes, and while they're, Dorothy and the Yellow Man are interacting with one another, he finds a set of keys and just takes them and then leaves, and comes and tells Sandy hey, I didn't get a jimmy a window open, what happened? And she was like, oh, I tried, but this guy in a yellow suit stopped me, and then he went to her apartment, so I figured that would be enough, so I just didn't go through with it. And he was like, well, it didn't go out the way I planned, but I got a set of keys, so hopefully they unlock the apartment.
She's like, you don't know where they lead to, so
yeah. And that leads to my next favorite scene, where we watch Dorothy perform at the club.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And
it's Lord. Well, I'm gonna call her. I was about to call her Lord, but Sandy and him both go together.
Yes.
Okay.
To watch her perform at this club.
And this is where the whole Heineken idea comes in.
Yes. And so at this point, it's later in the night. They decide they're gonna go watch Dorothy perform at this club called the Soft Circle or the Soft Club, something like that. I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
But as they're watching her perform, Kyle orders a beer. He orders a Heineken, and asks Sandy if she likes Heineken and all this stuff, and says that it's his favorite beer and all this stuff. And while they're having this conversation, Dorothy comes on and she starts performing the song Blue Velvet. And it's very beautiful. It's very it's shot beautifully. I love the contrast of like the red curtains and the blue neon, and then all the lights turn blue and she gets into the chorus of the song, and it's very breathy and airy, and I enjoy just watching her perform. And I also love too how enthralled you can see that Jeff is by her, and he's just, I think, almost interested in just the mystery of who this person is. And you know, he encountered her as, you know, just a regular person, but now he's seeing her in a different light, and is kind of like, man, who is this woman? And why are the police looking into her? How could this ear that I found possibly link back to her? I'm not entirely sure. The only thing I know is that this woman is a singer. And right now I'm kind of, you know, enthralled. I'm enticed by her. And while they're performing, you know, she's going on and on and on, singing different songs, and they decide to leave at this point.
To go to the apartment. And so Jeffrey drives over there and tells Sandy to drive the car that they drove in home, and that he's going to go in there, and I think he said that they both were going to go in there to look around, and she says, no, I'm staying out here. I'm not doing it. She chickens out twice.
Yeah, and so she's like, okay, well, you know what, I'm just going to go in there and, you know, just make it home safe, drive the car, drop it off at your home. I'll go pick it up whenever I'm done. And she's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stay here, and when I see anybody go in that might look like her, I'm going to honk 4 times to let you know to get out. And he's like, okay, that sounds great. I'll see you later.
Right.
So he goes in, opens up the door, and starts snooping around in the apartment, and that's when we, you know, it's very eerie, very creepy.
It's tense.
Like the entire time that this thing is happening too, there's like no music. It's just these like droning noises, and like sounds like almost like air conditioners and industrial things like going on at the same time. So there's no like real silence. It's just like, ooh, like these buzzing noises. And, you know, Jeff gets in there, starts snooping around in the apartment, realizes like he starts looking in the windows and in the bedrooms and stuff, and realizes that there's like a child's bed with like a little top hat type thing there. So we get a notion that there is possibly a kid that was involved in the apartment. And then, you know, also, you know, goes to the bathroom.
He goes to the bathroom, dude.
Starts peeing in her toilet, which I immediately, whenever I first watched this, I was like, if you're going to break in someone's house, why would you piss in their bathroom, dude?
I don't know.
Like, it's so insane to me. Like, if
you don't have unlimited time.
If I'm in my right mind, I have limited time, I'm breaking into someone's house, I'm going to find what it is I want, and I'm going to get out. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to pee.
Might as well just make a sandwich, or, you know. It's like,
yeah. It's so funny, too, whenever he pees and he goes, Heineken. like,
it's so weird. It's so weird. And of course, that's the whole plot device of, oh, he flushes that right at the time where she honks.
Yeah.
So he doesn't hear the honk, so he doesn't know that she's coming.
Exactly.
And that kind of leads into the craziness of this scene.
Yeah.
And this, I'll say right now, I did not predict anything.
Yeah.
Anything that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I really thought that he was slick because he hides into that closet, and at first she's about to go to the cabinet or the closet, and she doesn't, and then she like is on the floor and she looks at something, photo, and she's like crawling around, and then she goes and she's going to go to the bathroom, and you think, oh, okay, this is his chance, right? And then she comes back to get a robe, which we know now is the blue velvet robe, and she goes right past him, and you're like, okay, he's safe.
Yeah.
He's safe. And then, of course, he hits a hanger.
Yeah.
And she immediately is like, someone's here.
Yeah, but even then, after that, Frank... no. Frank doesn't come in
Not yet.
Yeah.
This is why I was very confused, because she ends up grabbing a knife and finding him. And she goes, what are you doing in my house? What are you doing in my house? Whoa, what were you watching? Or what were you... And
you sneak into people's houses to watch them get undressed.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it, too, because he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm here. I was watching you get undressed.
Yeah.
I saw things.
Yeah.
And he was like, she asks him for his name, and I immediately thought, all right, lie.
Yeah.
Or say something stupid like John Doe or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And he straight up goes, Jeffrey. I was like,
yeah.
Jeffrey, you don't even have a disguise on. You're an idiot, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
And she gets him out at knife point, straight up tells him to undress.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, maybe she's trying to humiliate him like he was watching her. Maybe she felt the same way. She wanted to do that. Maybe that was her sick way of getting humiliation back.
Yeah.
So he goes to strip down, and then it starts to get intimate in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
You start to kind of maybe think that this lady's not all there, or that, you know, she has like some kind of weird,
some sort of trauma or something.
Right. Some kind of like that where she kind of almost fetishizes a situation like this.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure how to describe it, but she kind of, you know, has him stand up and come closer and come closer and come closer, and then she's like kissing on his hips.
Yeah.
It starts to get like
Intimate.
very intimate, and
Yeah.
then they go to the couch, and when she's still naked under her dress.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He's at this point, he's completely nude.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're getting on there, and she's asking him all these intimate questions about, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah.
They're getting hot and heavy, and they're going to, you know, it's going to lead to somewhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the door.
Banging on the door.
Banging
Boom,
on the
boom,
door.
boom, boom.
And you're like,
Oh, crap. Who could this be?
There's more craziness that are happening. I thought this was the craziest thing in this scene.
Yeah.
No, it gets disturbed.
Yeah.
Honestly. He
You-
goes back into that closet,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where we get introduced to Frank.
Yeah. Well, I think it's even important to address what he was observing whenever whenever Jeff was in the closet. She gets a phone call, and she starts saying things about addresses like Meadow Lane, and she keeps saying mommy and little Donnie and
Right.
all this stuff. So we get led to believe that like something's obviously going on in her story. We don't know why she is, you know, saying these things or who she's talking to. She's talking about the songs that she sings, like Blue Velvet. She keeps saying, yes, I love singing Blue Velvet. I want to keep singing Blue Velvet, and talking about little Donnie and all these other things. And
Right.
at the first watch, you're like, what is happening? What is she talking about? These pieces have to connect to some point, right? We don't know when they're going to connect, but they have to at some point. And then whenever Frank enters the picture, now, you know, he comes in and he's just, you know, wearing all black, wearing this like bolo tie, and it's Dennis Hopper who plays him, and he plays a menacing villain. Comes in and, you know, immediately is just commanding everybody in the room. Meanwhile, you know, Jeffrey is hiding back in the closet, and Dorothy now is, you know, being put in a position where she, you know, is almost fearing for her life.
Right. It was a very intimate scene, and now it's turning almost like a violent, villainous tone now.
Yeah.
Where he's the dominant one in the scene, and he's the one that's not.
Yeah.
It's not even a consensual thing anymore. It's more of like I'm gonna be a dominant here, and I'm gonna. Where's my effing drink? And I'm gonna. Oh, now it's all dark in here. You know, the light, the candles out, and It's there's a. Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with here.
Yeah, and it makes me scared not only for Dorothy but Jeff now as well, because as far as he knows, no one's in the closet. It's just him and her.
Right.
But Jeffrey's watching all this go down, so I can only imagine that he is now terrified that this woman could probably kill him, and now this guy is probably going to do even worse, or he's going to witness something happen to her. Like, you know, it's all insanity, and just doesn't know what's going to happen. And you know, Frank is just insane. Like, he's just an insane character, and he's like the embodiment of evil. Almost.
I hate to laugh. I laugh just because I was so caught off guard.
The absurdity of it.
The absurdity of him and his dialogue, and just how brash and vulgar he is, and just that pulling out that almost what do you call it, like an oxygen
it's like
mask?
An oxygen mask, but he's obviously doing something other than oxygen.
Right, and he's deeply inhaling it, and just some of the dialogue he has where he's calling her mommy and telling her to, you know, do all these,
calling himself a baby.
Right, being in positions where it's just completely vulnerable. It's
it's strange and it's off-putting, and it makes you as a viewer be like, what the heck is going on?
You
puts
instantly hate him too.
Yeah, and it puts you in the position of Jeffrey.
Right.
You immediately start to be Jeffrey in this instance. You're the one in the closet being like, what the heck is going on?
Right.
Like, what did I get myself into? What is this guy doing, dude? Like, this is insane. This is not normal.
No.
Like, what's happening? I have no idea.
Yeah, and it's so cool. That's what preface all this by saying this sucks.
Yeah.
This is a trash situation.
This specific instance and situation is awful.
It is
terrible. A scene of abuse.
Yes.
And it's hard to watch.
Right.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Not at all.
And one of the things that I have to say is that I think is really interesting about this scene is we get to see where Dorothy is getting all of these things from. In the previous scene, whenever it was just Jeffrey and Dorothy in the apartment, Dorothy is doing these things like being like, "Don't look at me, hit me, take all your clothes off, don't look at me, don't look at me,"
Right.
and like, you know, as even goes first to like nick him in the
his
face
cheek,
with the
yeah.
knife at first, and you know, we're kind of like, why is she saying to hit her? Like, she doesn't want him to look at her and everything. Like, what's going on here? And then whenever Frank gets introduced to the picture, and you see like immediately how submissive she becomes, and how this guy is saying all the same things that she was saying, you immediately think,
Oh,
this
no.
is where she's learning this from, or you know, possibly she thinks Jeffrey is in on whatever Frank is on, and she thinks, you know, maybe he's into the same things that Frank is, and you know, she's trying to get him to like have the same responses possibly, you know, Frank would.
Right. And she's calling him Don throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
I think the scene is really interesting because, you know, we get a really, because at first you think, okay, this guy's coming in here and he's acting like this, so it's got to be some kind of like she is a lady of the night. You know, there's going to be a transaction that happens here.
Yeah.
And yet it gives us a really deeper picture into who Frank is, like deep.
Yes.
Not just what he portrays on the outside, but deeply who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes into some very, like, you know, it's almost like his trauma is spilling out of him.
Yes.
And we get to see that in this transaction. I immediately was thinking, oh, okay, we're just going to see this go down, and then he's going to leave, and they'll resume their talk.
Yeah.
And yet, no, we get a very intimate picture of who Frank truly is behind closed doors.
Yes.
And it was an interesting way to show it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really got me to really be interested into, you know, why Frank is the way he is, what maybe caused him to, you know,
To be this way.
to like doing stuff like this to this woman.
Yeah.
You know, and how long has it been going on? What's the relationship there?
Exactly.
How does this relate back to the ear, back to Dom, back to the child hat?
Mm-hmm.
How is this all going to connect?
Yeah.
And it really got me interested to see where's this going to lead?
Yeah.
Because if this unpredictable thing is going to happen,
What else? Is gonna happen?
what else is in store here? You
exactly.
know? It was a very interesting way to show that character.
Yeah. Yeah. And that pretty much wraps up that scene for me as well. After he leaves, and then, you know, Jeffrey enters the picture again, you know, he starts to understand.
He puts his clothes back on.
Yeah, he puts his clothes back on and is like, I'm ready to go. Like,
like
I'm ready to get out of here. Like, this is strange. I don't want anything to do with this. And, you know, I believe he says a couple more things to Dorothy before leaving.
Right.
And then goes and tells Sandy everything that happened the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And it just furthers the rabbit hole for him. And after this, he only starts to get even more invested in what's going on with Frank, Dorothy, how they're connected somehow.
Right.
Where does this ear fit into the picture? Why did she have a child's hat? When I looked at the photo that she pulled out, you know, there was the child wearing the hat and an older man who doesn't look like Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, now there's even an aspect where, like, if you potentially thought that Frank was like an abusive husband or something like that, that's out the picture, because there's a completely different guy in the photo with a kid wearing a hat.
Right. And it's also kind of establishing the somewhat interesting relationship that Jeffrey will have with her.
With her as well.
Because he's not innocent in this situation either.
Not at all.
Because they end up, you know, I don't know if we have it as a favorite scene, but they do end up
fooling around with one another.
Exactly.
And even he going as far as to sort of act the way that Frank acted to her.
Right.
And not even like doing it is almost like not even realizing it is kind of the eerie thing.
Right.
And my next favorite scene after that apartment scene is I titled it a candy-colored clown scene.
Oh, God.
And
this is nail-biting.
Yeah.
First off, just the context of how he gets caught up.
Yeah, so he's originally at Dorothy's apartment, and as he is, I think he's about to leave, Frank is there, comes up with his like posse.
He's just a neighbor.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, who is this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just a neighbor." And he's like, "Oh, what's your name, neighbor?" And you know,
he says Jeffrey what? Jeffrey nothing.
Yeah. And they have this back and forth, and I died laughing at
It's one of my favorite quotes. If
this
you have it.
Yeah, this exchange between them where he's like, "Hey, you want to go for a ride?" And then he goes, "No, thanks." And Frank both says, "No, thanks." What does that mean? And Jeff says, "I don't want to go." "Go where?" "For a ride." "A ride? Hell, that's a good idea. Okay, let's go." Like
he twists it.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, we're going.
Yeah, and then there's just this brief pause, and then he kind of like grabs him, and then grabs, has one of his henchmen grab Dorothy, and he's like, "Get your robe," and all this stuff and everything. They pile him in this car, and they drive him off somewhere. We don't know where they're going.
Right.
And we get the sense that the guys that he's with and the people that Frank surrounds himself with are not good people. They are
Probably as bad as Frank.
exactly. They are completely into this underbelly of this quiet little town, and they're running the things on the underside of things, right? They bring everybody to this sort of like brothel, almost, I guess you can say. And they put him in there, and it's tense. We don't know what's happening. There's random people in here, old women, and there's this character named Ben who seems like the runner of things, or like the manager of the property or something. I'm not entirely sure. But when we get put into here, we recognize that Dorothy has been having her husband and her kid held here, and for a brief moment they let her go see her kid.
Yeah, that was sad.
Yeah, and she's like, Frank says, "Let her go see the kid," and she, runs to the door, and you hear like, "Donnie," and you hear a mommy in the background, and they share a moment behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And while they're sharing that moment, Jeff is in the middle of things, being interrogated and assaulted by Frank and his henchmen and all these people, and it's just a nail biter of a scene. Like we get immediately stressed out for Jeffrey because this is supposed to be our guy, and judging by the unpredictability of the film, we have no idea what could happen next to this guy. Like it could be lights out for him in any second. We have no idea.
Right.
And I don't know. I love everything about this scene. I don't know why I think Frank is so funny in some of these scenes too. Like he's a piece of trash person, but like the way Dennis Hopper delivers his lines and makes this character be larger than life and just over the top is so funny to me. Like I laughed so hard whenever they're about to go into the brothel, and Frank is like, "Do you like beer? What kind of beer do you drink?" And then Jeff is all, "Heineken." And then Frank goes, "Heineken? F that crap. Pabst Blue Ribbon."
Screaming.
Yeah, just I was dying laughing at that quote.
Right.
Just the absurdity of it.
It's ridiculous. I mean, every single sentence has an F word in it.
Yeah.
So he's like this, and it's always unnecessary, and it's always just like
he's this embodiment of evil.
Right.
Right. Like he's cussing all the time. He's a piece of trash. He's taking advantage of people. He's murdering. He's selling drugs. He's doing all this stuff.
Drugs.
He's doing drugs. Exactly. Like he's speeding. He's destroying property. Like he is the antithesis of what everything you're told not to do.
Right.
And we get this scene where Frank just starts repeating these words, and he keeps saying, "A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman." And with no context, you're like,
what the
heck does that mean? Like I have
no
idea what this could mean, dude. And he always says "Now it is dark," or or when they're pulling up to the thing, he goes, "This is it. This is it." And we're like, what the heck? What is he saying? I don't understand. Why is he saying these things? And then, he keeps saying, "A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman." And then we start to, we realize he's talking to Ben, and he's asking Ben essentially to perform a song that opens up with the lyrics, "A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman." It's a song by Roy Orbison called "In Dreams," which is funny because when I first watched this movie, I didn't catch on to what he was saying. But then as soon as the song started, I was like, I know this song. I really like this song. This is interesting to see the song used in this context. And then, you watch Ben perform like
With his,
he's like
little
lip syncing.
light.
Yeah, he's like lip syncing the song with like a work lamp, and is having this whole performance and stuff and everything. And when it was happening, I'm smiling. I'm just kind of like laughing because I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I love the song. It's funny. But then we look at like shots of Frank, and he's like, looks like he's about to cry.
Yeah, he's going
like he's just like, in dreams I walk. Like
he's like saying, yeah, he's reciting it.
Yeah, and he's like lip syncing the song along with him, but he's like, looks like he's about to cry.
He's messed up.
And like we get shots of Jeffrey, and he's like looking at everything that's going on. He doesn't know what to do, and like it's almost like they're like kind of like teasing Jeffrey before like they're about to kill him almost, you know. And then I think it's even interesting. We see Frank like singing the song, and then he like has this like burst of anger, and then like kind of gets it back under control, and then Ben stops the performance. They get everybody back, and they go back out into the car, and
they just
start wailing on freaking everybody. Like they leave Jeffrey for dead almost, like in some random field that was in Meadow Lane that was revealed by Dorothy on a phone call, and it's insane. It's insanity.
Yeah, it's just another deeper look into inside Frank and the inner mechanisms of his brain and what the heck is wrong with him, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's driving the stakes up higher and higher and higher because now you know that the kid and the husband are trapped, and that if she doesn't really follow along with them, then they're gonna die.
Yeah, they could potentially be killed.
Now we're already kind of associating the cut off ear to the husband who probably got his ear cut off.
Yep.
I mean, I think Jeffrey even goes on to say, like, I think, he's being held there, and I think that she cut off his ear as a warning.
Yeah.
So they're already connecting that thread together, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But my next favorite scene isn't until the end.
Same. My last favorite scene is just the whole ending sequence.
Yeah, the ending sequence I think is great.
Yeah.
It's very tense, and it's back into an environment that we're already familiar with, which is Dorothy's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He is going there, and I think it's throughout the whole time Detective Williams is like he's doing something, right?
Yeah,
or he's taking care of Dorothy.
No, Jeffrey revealed everything that he found to Detective Williams, and basically told him that one of your guys is dirty. The yellow man is a detective. And he's a crooked cop, essentially, and he's been helping out Frank the entire time, with all the illicit, activity that's been going on in this tiny little town. And so he is kind of like following up on that stuff, and Jeffrey, he knows what's going on, and so does Detective Williams, but Sandy doesn't know. Sandy, as far as we know, or as far as she knows, is just in the dark at this point, and just is going on a random date with Jeffrey on a Friday night. And that ends up not being the case here. You want to take it from there?
Well, I'm trying to remember, because my favorite scene isn't until the apartment, but I know that they end up driving home from the apartment. They kind of confess their feelings to each other, and they're on cloud 9, really. And they're driving back, and the car drives up behind him and is like ramming into him.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately he's thinking, oh, shoot, it's Frank. It's Frank. He's come to kill me, pretty much, right? So he guns it. They're, swerving in and out of traffic, trying to dodge cars, and eventually they get right next to each other, and she goes, oh, no, it's Mike. It's my ex-boyfriend. And he pulls over and blocks him in, and he goes, you stole my girl, I'm going to beat you up.
Yeah.
This guy's got bigger things to worry about, but obviously he doesn't know, so he comes out, and then it's not even really like prominent.
Yeah, it's not even pronounced.
No, it's
not
she
just
kind
of comes out of nowhere, but Dorothy is seen just fully nude and beaten and bruised.
Yeah, she's got bruises all over her body, and she's saying, like, what is she saying? Like, where were you? Or, dumb.
Yeah.
And you're immediately like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why is she here? It's going to destroy everything because he kind of had a relationship with her, and now he's confessed his love for her?
Yep.
How is that going to work?
Yeah.
I love that Mike is just like, yo.
Yeah.
You got problems?
Yeah. Even one of his buddies is like, is that your mom?
And he straight up says, like, I'm out of here. Yeah. And even one of the guys was like, dude, I thought you were going to kill him.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to beat him up.
Yeah.
And he goes,
nope, I'm not dealing with
I'm
this.
not-
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Mike's the goat for that.
Yeah.
But he consoles her.
Yeah,
They-
and like kind of takes her in, he puts her in the car at first, and then takes her back to Detective Williams' home. They bring her in, and
Mhm.
that's when all this stuff starts to air out. She's like, "You told me you loved me. You put your disease in me." And all this stuff, and all
Sandy's
basically
there
like, all-
going like,
what? Yeah, like everything's Jeff's dirty laundry is getting aired out.
yeah.
And there's just a ton of stuff that's being said about Jeffrey that hasn't been revealed to either character. So
Nope.
he's been playing them both at the same time.
He really has.
And yeah, and eventually comes to find out as far as we're aware, Dorothy needs to stay here.
Right.
I'm gonna go, back to her apartment and see if there's anything that I can try to do to help or something like
Yeah,
that.
I couldn't remember why he got back to the apartment, but he ends up going back to the apartment, and he goes upstairs and unlocks the door, and you see someone tied up with a blue velvet little piece in his mouth.
Yes.
And then you see the
The
detective,
yellow man.
the yellow man, standing there with like a piece of his brain
Yeah, he's
sticking
like-
out.
Yeah, like I got a gunshot wound, but he's just standing there.
It's like he's got the rigor mortis. He's
Yeah.
just stiff as a board standing up.
Yeah.
And then the camera pans in and you see the cut off ear.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
Well, there was
The hus-
Don, the husband, who is now dead.
didn't
And-
survive it.
Yeah, and you come to the conclusion that Frank is the guy that killed both of these guys, or
Right.
at least he killed Don, the husband, to possibly send a message, quote unquote,
Right.
to Dorothy, and then beat her up, and then maybe to tie off loose ends or something like that. Also killed Detective Gordon, or the Yellow Man, who
Right.
was helping him on the side.
Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed the part where he leaves the apartment, locks it, and is going down the stairs, but he hears a car door. And he looks down there, and he sees the well-dressed man.
Yeah.
That was the third guy he never got the identity of
Yeah.
when he was taking the pictures, which was one of my problems.
Yeah, he's going. Yeah.
But he sees the well-dressed man come out, and then we get the flashback of that scene, and you're immediately like, oh, okay. Because he goes in, and then he comes out. It's basically Frank in disguise.
Yeah.
He doesn't want the
I
detective to know his real true identity.
exactly.
So he dresses up as a well-dressed man with a alligator
al-
briefcase.
Yeah. I have to say too, I love just the intensity of the scene. Like hearing there's just those ominous footsteps
Right.
on the concrete and the stairs and stuff. You're like, what the heck is going on? Why is this guy coming out of nowhere now? Like, who could he be? And then you get a shot, where he kind of looks up the stairwell, and you can obviously see this is Frank with like a fake mustache and wig on and stuff. And we're like, Frank is the well-dressed man. Oh crap! Run back up. Like you go
He
back.
drops
to
his keys to get back to the apartment,
Yeah.
biting your nails.
Yeah, it's a nail biter, like
Yeah.
literally. And as soon as he gets in the house,
I
he-
really enjoyed
he
a
had
lot of
he had the police radio that was on Detective Gordon, and Frank also has a police radio, and he comes to
He
the
was smart enough.
yeah, he comes to the realization, like he keeps saying, like, hey, I'm trapped in Frank's apartment,
Right.
like, or excuse me, I'm trapped in Dorothy's apartment. I have nowhere to go. I need backup. I need help. I'm trapped here. And meanwhile, Frank is listening and is like, perfect. I got him where I want him. I can kill him.
Right.
And Jeff is smart enough to come to the realization where he can kind of look around, look for places to hide, and then goes back on the radio and says, if you come, I'm hiding in the back bedroom of Dorothy's apartment, and then leaves the radio there and goes and hides back in the closet where he originally hid.
It's a nice callback.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's just another way of him being like really diligent and
Yeah.
being like pretty much a detective.
Yeah.
Like it almost seems like he's built for a job like this, even though he's doing some illegal things.
Yeah, he's sleuthy.
He is very sleuthy, but he's dedicated. And Frank comes in, and I like it because you see him rip off the mustache,
Yeah.
and it's just a kind of pitiful disguise, honestly.
Yeah.
But he comes in and he goes, "Oh yeah, you're freaking stupid. You know I have a radio. I'm gonna get you."
Yeah.
And he's like, he's doing that stereotypical villain thing where he's like, "I'm coming.
Yeah.
Get ready." He's like trying to scare
Yeah,
him and all
amp
that
it
stuff. And all the while, he's back in that position. Not only he's not vulnerable in the closet anymore, though. Now it's almost like he has the upper hand,
Mhm.
which it feels somewhat different. It's in the same situation, but very different, like
Yeah.
in power
Mhm.
now. And as he goes in there, I thought, oh shoot, he's gonna run out. That's perfect.
Yeah.
No, he goes and grabs the gun.
Yeah.
Off the guy.
From the yellow man.
Right. And Frank, he's shooting up there, doesn't find him, comes back out, and he's taking puffs of his
amyl nitrate,
whatever the heck it does. He's taking inhales of this drug, and he shoots the detective who might or might not have been alive or dead.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Not entirely sure.
And he's shooting other things, and then, he gets to the last option, which is the closet.
Yeah.
And, instead of just shooting it like he probably should have done,
Yeah.
he goes and opens it.
Yeah.
And, of course, the whole time,
Jeff's
Jeffrey's
there.
in there with this massive freaking, it's like a Magnum or something.
Something.
And he straight up, boom,
Yeah.
right in his head.
Peels Frank's cap.
Opens him up, man.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now, the main adversary of the entire film is dead. And, basically everything that was wrong with the city or everything was going through him. He was like the kingpin of everything almost, right? And now he is he's been dealt with, essentially.
All pretty much all the villains, because
Yeah.
the detective he's gone.
Yep.
So the crime is really cleaned up here. And obviously Sandy comes in, she sees the aftermath, and then Detective William comes in and he's like, it's all over now, or it's finished, or something like that. And I don't know. He seems to be taking it fairly well for just killing a man.
Yeah.
Like at point blank range.
Yeah.
I kind of would be like traumatic.
Yeah.
I would think that you'd start to like see that and just be like, and break down. But he kind of was just, he seemed to take it fairly well.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really funny. And then it kind of leads into that whole dream-like, very
wholesome.
very
ending.
wholesome.
Everything now, up until this point has been, fade to black, but now it's kind of like fade to white.
Right.
And everything gets kind of like almost overexposed. And there's this beautiful song called Mysteries of Love that's happening the entire time. It's got these like awesome synths and pads that are happening in the background. And, we get to see like these montages of, again, these things that made us comfortable in the beginning, with the fireman.
He's back.
Waving by. And shots
all those
of the
beautiful red roses, the white picket fences.
Exactly. And now we get to see Jeffrey's the one that's watering the lawn, and Sandy's over. She's got her family over at the
lunch is ready. It's all like the very stereotypical classic, like, oh, it's a Saturday morning. I've got my lemonade. I'm reclining. I see a nice bird. And life couldn't be better than this.
My dad's talking to my dad's girlfriend. They're hitting it off. They're
all
friends.
They're like, oh, how you doing, Dad?
Yeah.
It seemed very dreamlike and very kind of stereotypical. Like, oh, this is exactly what you think a nice suburban household would be.
Yeah.
And of course, he walks in and he sees the two women. Lunch is ready. It's just kind of like on the nose. Very wholesome, or very just like this is how it should be.
Yes.
Everybody is happy. Everybody's safe.
Mm-hmm.
All their needs are met. And then, of course, Sandy sees the bird that he saw out there, and it's got a beetle in its mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, whoa, come on, look at this. Come on, look at this. And he looks at it and he goes, he says something about the robin, and then he brings back that other line where he says, life is strange.
Yeah.
Or
it's a strange world.
yeah, it's a strange world.
Yeah.
Bringing up freaking Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Bad world.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a very nice way to end it, because he overcomes.
Mm-hmm.
The villains, the evil of the world did not taint him.
Yeah.
He succeeded.
Yes.
And he's got the girl he's wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching a bird eat a beetle.
Yep.
And I didn't know. So I'm really thankful for your the videos. First off, the videos you sent, and then just you highlighting all the stuff I missed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you like the ending?
I did. I also really enjoy the ending of seeing Dorothy with little Donnie again.
Yeah.
That's where it ends on specifically, where you see the kid wearing the hat again, and you're like, oh shoot, this is Dorothy's kid. And then you see Dorothy kind of like watching him play. And she looks so happy in the moment. She, kind of hugs him and embraces him. But there's even a slight look of like after she's done smiling, she kind of has this like hint of sadness, and kind of like remembers like this kid was once taken from me, and maybe I don't have my kid's father around anymore. Like he was killed, but I'm still here. I'm in this moment, and then kind of like peels, fades back up to the sky, and then the blue velvet comes back and the credits roll. And
right.
Yeah,
and you hear her last lyrics.
Yeah.
See blue velvet through my tears.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and then the film ends essentially there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm blanking on the question that you asked me before.
Oh, just
Pardon.
if you liked it.
The film?
Yes.
Yes, I did. I really enjoyed the film, and I have to say, with the second watch, I caught on to a lot of the symbolism and the metaphors that the film presents, and why certain things are included in the film, and
right.
I really appreciated it. I have to say too, in regards to the ending, there's a specific scene in the film where Laura Dern's character Sandy and Jeffrey are having a conversation, and Sandy decides to tell Jeffrey a dream that she had about Jeffrey. And she's like, yeah, I had this dream about you, and it's like the time where we first met, and all these robins came along from, in my dream, and the robins were a symbol of love. And, there were so many of them, they were overwhelming. And, I didn't get to dream much after that because I ended up waking up. And it's interesting watching that, understanding that dream and hearing that. And also him responding with, you're a neat girl.
She's basically like, bro, I love you.
Yeah,
and
she's
like,
telling him, I love you.
he's like, oh, you're neat.
Yeah. Yeah, or like it's the same context of just being like, cool.
Thanks. And not
Yeah.
being like, oh, wow, I feel the same.
Yeah.
No, she's just like, cool.
Yeah, it's super funny. But listening to that dream and understanding that the bird that gets shown at the end is a robin, and this robin comes back. It's a symbol for love, and even the entire context of the film with Frank saying now it's dark, and constantly being surrounded in this darkness throughout the entirety of the film, and then changing that with the exposure to light and seeing these themes of like light exposing the darkness and love conquering all, those robins being a symbol for love, and eating the bugs, right? Love conquering the badness of the world, or the darkness of the world, all the violence and the chaos that we saw in the beginning with all those beetles are now being taken over by the robin. And ultimately the film leaves us with this sense of that love conquers all, right, essentially, and that it is able to break down any boundary and defy everything, essentially. And it was interesting picking that up on a second watch, and then having my beliefs solidified with the analysis videos and video essays that I'd sent you later today, or earlier today, I should say.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah.
But that's it for what that's pretty much the movie right there.
Yes, sir. So with that, let's get into some best quotes.
Yeah, you're a neat girl. The first one, I was like, oh, dude, I've got to write that one down.
My first one, actually, I heard it and I was like, oh, Jeff's smooth. He's got some lines. And it's right whenever he's about to go break into the apartment at the night of. And Sandy says something to the effect of, I can't figure out if you're a detective or a pervert.
That's what I was going to say.
And then Jeff says, well, that's for me to know and for you to find out. I was all, oh, smooth, bro. He's got some lines. He's trying to show her what's up.
Yeah, speaking of lines, he is talking to Sandy, and he says, I'm seeing something that was always hidden. I'm in the middle of a mystery, and it's all a secret. She goes, you like mysteries that much? And he goes, yeah, you're a mystery. I like you very much. And I was like, oh, he's really, he's working his way in there.
Yep.
It's pretty smooth.
Yeah, my other ones come from Frank. We've already talked about the, a ride? No, that's a good idea. Okay, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
That one's hilarious. The other one being the Heineken. F that crap. Pabst Blue Ribbon. That's what you'll drink tonight. Like, it's hilarious. Like, when I was looking at the quotes section of the IMDb here and what people are writing, like, it's all majority Frank.
It is.
And
a majority of it is just so vulgar that it's hard to even recite here.
Yeah, and him just going, let's F. I'll have anything that moves.
It's
yeah!
like gosh.
It's just insanity.
Yeah.
But I have to say, he is the most memorable part of this movie, I think, just because of how absurd he is.
Yeah, definitely agree. I'm reading through all of his quotes, and every single one, get ready to F you, F. It's just like, jeez, man.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's kind of what characterizes him as just off the wall, ridiculous man.
Exactly.
Vile.
Any other best quotes here?
Nope.
Okay. Well, let's get into some of the bro moments.
Oh yes,
I'm sure we're gonna have a lot.
I had pretty much all of the movie. I was just like, bro, and I typed it, and I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
I typed it. Said peeing in the toilet, missing the honks.
Yeah.
That was a big one. Oh gosh.
Yeah. I had written down, initially finding the ear.
Yeah.
It's off-putting. It's eerie. Seeing like the ants crawling all over it, and it's like moldy. It's been there for a while. It's weird. Jeff stealing the spare key to Dorothy's apartment.
Yep.
Like when he originally was like, I'm just gonna jimmy a window, and then he saw keys and was like, nope, taking the keys. Again, Jeff peeing and not being able to hear the honk. When Dorothy finds Jeff in the closet, I put a whole bro moment as Frank baby mama.
Yeah, I literally put the other dude coming in ? Mommy ?
Yeah,
Because I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Does he like? Because I've read about people who like to
mommy play
or like to
baby.
they like to act like a baby.
Yeah.
I never understood it. Never
Yeah.
wanted to research more into it.
Yeah.
And I thought this might be a situation like that where he's just like, oh, mommy.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like,
yeah, it's strange. It's weird.
I immediately was like, bro, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
I wrote that down.
That entire thing is a bro moment.
I have the hidden camera when he's going.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny, honestly. I have the Jeffrey actually giving in and hitting her.
Yeah, me too.
That scene I thought was really insane.
Yeah.
Because the whole while she's kind of like egging him on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. She's trauma filled, so she's
Yes.
kind of like maybe that's the way that she knows Lev, so she's telling him to do it because otherwise
she'll.
he might not be pleased
Yeah.
or whatever. So
Yeah.
but he ends up like
Actually doing it, he like backhands her.
yeah, and I was like, what the heck? This is not in your character.
Yeah. It's interesting too, even like the way that it gets edited afterwards.
It's kind
like
of
it's like distorted and weird, and things get like real hazy looking in the cinematography side of things. So it's like almost like this like conflict of character that comes over Jeffrey and is like, he gives into that side of him that he should never have done.
Right. I think he even cries too afterwards.
Yeah, that's my next bro moment is getting the scene where he, wakes up in bed and is kind of thinking about everything, and it plays back to the scene where he hit her and plays back to scenes of Frank and all this stuff and everything, and starts crying. And I think he cries because he kind of realized like,
I'm no better.
I'm no better. Like I think everybody, has that little bit of Frank in them, and it's all a matter of like if you act on it or not, or if you actually give into those compulsions. Frank is the epitome of like almost like hedonism.
Whatever you desire,
hedonism.
He's like he listens to his inner thoughts. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? He lets the inner thoughts win.
He lets his intrusive thoughts win.
Yes, he does.
And that could be detrimental to you sometime, man. And I think Jeff realizes that and starts to cry about it, and then recognizes like, I cannot let that get the best of me. Like that is inexcusable. It's not who I am. Right. I do not want to be like that. My last couple of bro moments is finding out the yellow man is the detective Gordon. And then lastly, whenever Dorothy goes to Detective Williams' house, and she's covering, like Jeff is like covering her up, and she's like, caressing him and stuff and everything.
His little blazer off, dude.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, nah, she's gonna be naked out here.
Yeah, and she's like covering him or hugging him and like caressing him and stuff, and then she says, "My secret lover." I was just like, oh,
and Laura Dern has taken this hard.
Yeah, she's just like,
dude,
what?
her reactions are a whole bro moment to me because how did she get her lips to
I don't know, dude. Like
her lips are like
they go down.
They
like
go
it's like
like
a clown almost. Like they're very exaggerated.
And she's not really making noise. She's just going like. It's like she stubbed her toe bad, and she's like in pain. I died laughing. I can't believe you forgot this part. When they're outside and they're beating Jeffrey, he plays the song, the clown
in
song.
Dreams, yeah.
And the girl comes out and is
And she's
dancing
going-
on top of the car.
Yeah, I loved that part too.
I loved it, but I was like,
what the heck? Yeah.
what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so funny.
Frank puts lipstick on himself and is like kissing Jeffrey, and then they beat the crap out of him, and yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's definitely a bro moment.
Yeah.
And then, seeing that cop's brain hanging out of his head.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's it for the bro moments. We'll get into the facts.
Where does he get his facts from? Where does he get his budget from?
I believe he pulls it from IMDb.
Do you have it? Because I have
don't,
a very watered down version of it.
We'll use that, and then I'll pull it up because we usually have the data boy
I know.
pull that stuff up.
I always rely on him.
Yeah,
I'm reading here. Budget was $6 million.
Okay.
And then box office, he normally has it segmented, but this one it just says 8.6 million.
Okay.
So doesn't seem to be making too much, but I think that's just North America. So
Yes.
gross worldwide, do you have that?
Yeah, the worldwide. No, that is the worldwide gross.
Oh,
So,
is it?
So budget was $6 million. The gross in the U.S. was $8.5 million.
Okay.
And then the worldwide gross was 8.6.
8.6. Okay.
So
Wow. So I wouldn't consider it maybe not the hit the most.
It's not a flop, definitely.
No, definitely
it
not.
made its money, but it's a very niche market. We'll say that.
I would have to agree with you there.
Yeah. One of the things I found interesting, I did not know about this movie, is this movie got Oscar nominated for Best Director.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Has he ever won?
No.
Well, he's at least gotten nominated.
Yeah.
So that means something there.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll start with an easy one. So Jeff, I read to you that quote earlier of him saying, "I'm in the middle of a mystery."
Mm-hmm.
Well, turns out he says that exactly halfway through the film.
That's funny. That's interesting.
What a neat detail
Yeah.
to include.
Yeah, it's just one of those things too where I feel like David Lynch,
He's like,
he puts that specifically like in the middle, like and does it on purpose, you
Right.
know. And I think that's one of the things why I like some of his films is that he just puts all these little things in there for you to pick out and figure out. And if you do it, then you're like, oh, that's cool. I get that, you know, and you're able to share that with other people.
For sure.
I had read in an interview actually that Dennis Hopper claimed that David Lynch would never say the F word during filming. He would simply point to a line in the script that said the F word and then would go, that word. And would like never say it out loud.
Oh wow.
And, Hopper laughed about it and said that he can write it, but he won't ever say it. He's a peculiar man. And Lynch has said that that this isn't exactly true, but he didn't want to change the atmosphere any more than it already was, or make anything crazier than it already was on set.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have a kind of a quote about the scene where she was nude outside. Name Isabel Rossellini.
Yes.
And I thought it was really interesting just because I don't really know the way that they direct and what kind of creative decisions they're able to make or able to reject, you know. Well, she is in her autobiography, she talks about the new scene on the lawn, and I won't read all of it because it's pretty long, but she goes on to say that she'd wish that they found another approach for the scene. She did not like being totally exposed. She goes on to say, I kept worrying about what my family would think when the film came out, and I searched and searched for other solutions until the last moment. And then she goes on to even say that there were people outside watching them film.
Yeah.
And it was like grandparents and young children.
Yeah.
And she approached them and was like, hey, this is going to go on. It's kind of heavy. I'm just giving you a warning here. You might not want to watch.
Yeah.
And they stayed.
They were just like, give me the popcorn.
Give me the popcorn. I'm watching a movie. But like little kids, this is
Yeah.
not a kid movie at all.
It is not.
Yeah, I thought that was just super interesting that she kind of has some hesitations about it.
Yeah.
And ended up still doing it, but still, you know, gave warnings out, and she really tried.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe they could have gave her little pasties. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. I have one actually again in regards to Dennis Hopper and David Lynch here. So the character of Frank was originally written to breathe helium at various intervals in David Lynch's.
Funny that would be, dude.
Yeah, and so that was a part of the original script, but Dennis Hopper has suggested that this be changed to what is used in the film called amyl nitrate, which had been known to it's been used and known to enhance sexual experiences. So that's what he's like breathing.
Would you call it ammonium or what was that? What's the actual drug that he inhales? It's like
amyl nitrate.
Amyl nitrate, gotcha.
Yeah. And so that's what it was changed to. And Hopper had only realized years later how bizarre and therefore fitting the concept of a helium-breathing maniac talking with a high voice would have been. And Lynch, however, had felt that using helium might elicit laughter in the audience, which he would have found undesirable. Which, yeah, I think that would have been hilarious, having some guy inhaling helium and then going, "Baby wants to," or being like, "Mommy."
Dude, if
I
that
wouldn't-
happened, I would not be able to handle
No,
it.
it would have been, this is a comedy. Like, there's no way that this could be taken serious, Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah.
Speaking of what ifs, the role of Jeffrey was actually offered to Val Kilmer.
I don't think anyone else could have done it.
No, I think Kyle MacLachlan. I think he does a good job.
Yeah.
Speaking of, he plays in Twin Peaks. This was inspiration for Twin Peaks, and you had mentioned to me that, and immediately I was like, "Oh, of course,
Yeah,
of
you
course
can
it is."
tell.
You could definitely tell. And just watching the first 2 episodes, I haven't watched all of it,
Yeah.
but just watching the first 2 episodes, you get that weird, eerie feeling.
Yeah.
And it's the same. It's like a crime
Mm-hmm.
that you don't know how it was committed.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Another funny casting what if, Willem Dafoe was considered for Frank.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I kind of think he could have done it.
You think so?
I think so.
Well, in 1986,
Yeah.
what was he doing around then? I don't even know.
I'm not even sure. I know.
Spider-Man came out 2007. That's the first role I've ever seen him in.
Well, even before that, it was like
2001.
2001.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe he could have. It's just kind of weird because I don't really see him as like this villain guy.
Yeah.
He's always just like the eccentric weirdo.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I have another fact, actually, in regards to the use of Roy Orbison's song in Dreams.
Ooh.
And Roy Orbison actually initially rejected David Lynch's request to use the song in the scenes that it's used. And Lynch had found a way to legally use the song anyway. And Orbison did not discover the song was in the movie until he decided to happen upon the movie in a random California theater and decided to watch it.
Really?
Yeah, and then whenever he eventually watched the film, Orbison then later decided to film a video for the song that was produced by David Lynch and would use footage from the movie in the video.
Oh, so they kind of played off each other a little bit there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really. The only other thing I have is the F word was used 56 times, and Frank says all of them but one.
Yeah.
So he says it 55 times.
Yeah.
That's pretty much. If you were to look at his script, every single one.
Yeah.
And it's funny that he just points to it. He's like, "Oh, you
This word.
this word.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be funny to see.
Yeah. Then my last one actually kind of plays into the ending of the film. And in an interview that David Lynch did with Jonathan Ross, Lynch claims that the robin in the final scene is a real bird.
No.
And
No.
he says, when told that it looks like an artificial bird, he says, well, it's playing a role.
So it's not real.
And he smiles afterwards very, very bigly when he says that.
He's just joshing.
Yeah.
He's just joking.
And then this is interesting. It was actually alleged later on that although the robin was mechanic, it was made from an actual dead robin that the props department found on the street. Again, that's alleged. It's not true.
Oh, okay.
It's not real, or at least it's never been confirmed.
Oh, dude.
But
yeah, that robin was fake, dude.
Yeah.
You saw like
yeah, it's going.
it's not real.
Yeah.
I honestly thought it was puppeteer.
Yeah, puppet maybe. Or
I really
something.
thought it was like someone was back there holding it and
Yeah.
moving it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But I thought it was really funny that he was like, "Yeah, no, it's a real bird. Well, the bird is playing a role, you know."
But
Yeah.
yeah,
fine.
I could see that.
But yeah, that's it for the facts for me.
Me too, man.
All right, what didn't work in this film?
I have to say I don't think it's very accessible to the broad audience.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely have to be a film buff or.
You've got to be prepared. I mean, it's very strange, and it's not for the casual audience. I said I would not blame you for absolutely hating this film. If you had no idea who David Lynch was or the types of movie that he creates,
and you stumble upon this and watched it,
you would be like,
you're gonna be.
It doesn't follow
offended.
any of the traditional story structures, pretty
No,
much. It's
no.
kind of like all over.
Yeah, it's even hard to like give the film a genre. Like it's got like even a time period. Like it's got elements of the 50s, but then it's got like the 80s movie teenage rebelliousness.
Right.
It's got like things that were not being talked about in any 80s movies, like sadomasochism and things like that. Like it's a very provocative movie,
Yeah.
like for the time.
So I do have to acknowledge that, if you hate it, I get it.
Yeah.
There is gotta,
Yeah.
there's, you just gotta be prepared.
Yeah.
For
And
something
that's
like
the
this.
thing too, especially with, any sort of director that has a very specific style or unique way of telling a story. It's not going to be
Well,
for everyone.
That's okay. Here's a question. So, is that a good thing or a bad thing if you have to like research the director before you watch their movies? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
External research
I thought the
to
same
enjoy
thing.
a movie.
I thought the same thing with the Safdie brothers at first.
Mm.
My first experience with them was Uncut Gems, and I was like, my first watch, I was like, that movie was trash. It sucked. I couldn't pay attention. I was like, what even
the
happened?
dialogue. I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
There's so many people talking.
Yeah. And then I watched Good Time, and I was like, wait, that was actually really good. I
Wait a
really
second.
liked that. I want to revisit Uncut Gems. And then I watched it again, and I was like,
Mm.
Uncut Gems was freaking great.
Yeah, but see, it didn't require you to be like, you experienced it through the films. You didn't like, okay, let's read a documentary about David Lynch and
Yeah.
oh, this is the kind of film,
Well, I think maybe I kind of went through the same thing because I experienced the short film.
It's like a whole book report.
yeah.
Like you got to do a book report before you can even experience a film.
Yeah. I don't know, because I watched the short film with rabbits.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that was really strange, really weird. Don't know where that was from. And I was curious right off the bat. And then found out, okay, this guy plays a lot with surrealism in his art, in his art, and a lot of the movies he makes, also delve into that. He's also very like, David Lynch grew up in like post-war America, so violence was very prominent in his life, and he has affinity for like American pop music that's very old and like diners and stuff and everything like that, but he shows things in a way that are very strange but makes sense to him. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's to its detriment, but I
Yeah.
definitely know that if you find someone who likes David Lynch movies, or knows about his work, or can appreciate it, or has seen some of his films, you're talking to somebody who likes movies, or like really like loves cinema.
Yeah. And just likes to, this has a lot to do with symbolism
Yeah.
and a lot to do with all that. And
Yeah.
usually the more higher browed movies they don't just tell a singular story.
Mhm.
I mean, it might seem like that on the surface, but there's always these underlying meanings. And it's really, if you're not very familiar with watching movies and how to watch movies or what to look out for,
Yeah.
it could be, very like, what the heck?
Jarring.
What the heck is happening? What does this all mean? You
Yeah.
know? So I definitely get that. The only other thing I had written was I had put that the acting and dialogue it's charming, but it feels very stiff.
Okay.
And I won't praise it at all,
Mm-hmm.
but it has its charm. But I just think that some of the delivery was kind of like stiff.
Okay.
I don't know. Did you kind of feel that way too, or?
I see, and that's the thing is, I have just come to understand that is David
That's just
Lynch's
him.
style.
Okay.
I've watched episodes. I haven't finished Twin Peaks, but I've watched episodes of Twin Peaks,
Similar,
and I have found myself just being like, "This is grueling to get through." Almost like people being like, "I found this woman by the water. She had a ring on her finger."
she had an E under her fingernail.
Yeah, and it's like I listen to some of the dialogue, and I'm just like, okay, kind of get it through a little bit, but then I've also come to understand that this is just his style, and like he's very campy and very how do I say it? Like he's very insistent that his style be portrayed on screen, and he works with actors who are able to do that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure.
Well, that's all I've got. So I'm reading a 1-star already. They titled it Blue Vomit. I won't go that far, but it's just funny.
Okay. I have things for what didn't work. Where are the mom and the aunt throughout this movie? Other than in the intro and the outro.
Yeah. They don't. What are they?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They're just kind of there, and then we forget that they're there. And I was reading actually that this movie was originally intended to be like 4 hours long.
I would have a whole different tone and
Yeah.
and thought about this movie. It was just 4 hours long.
Yeah. It was originally intended, I guess, that this movie was 4 hours long. On the Criterion, there were 4 or 55 minutes of deleted scenes alone. And yeah, so it's pretty insane. So I am only assuming that the deleted scenes and a lot of the edited content of this film probably included them a lot more. But with the final product that you get, it's kind of like, why even include them then?
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of like
Somewhat of an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that.
And then the only other thing is I kind of wish there was a bit more character depth with like people like Jeffrey and Sandy. Sandy gets kind of portrayed as this like version or image of purity.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish that maybe they played that in a little more, or showed her aversion to the things that Jeff is doing and what she was really about or something like that, or why Jeff is really doing this, because there's really no explanation. He just kind of is like, I found this ear. Well, let's see what the next thing is. Like, it never really dives into why he's wanting to do the things or what his motivations are.
Right.
It's just kind of like one thing to the next,
Yeah, he gets himself into these situations where you're like, you have no business here. Why do you even want to do this?
Yeah.
Why are you here? It's like, that's why I was like, okay, he's got to be like in a detective school or something. He's got to be like, I'm going to hone my craft right now.
Or he's just nosy. He's a chismoso.
He's a chismoso. That's the only.
So maybe Abe would like this movie, man.
Yeah, true. He'd be like, hey, I relate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. Do you have anything else, though?
No. We can get into what did work here.
Yeah. I have actually quite a few things. I really enjoyed the sound design here.
Mm.
The sound design is great. It reminds me of it gets to the borderline of like an ASMR. Just the way that their voices sound and how it's mixed, they almost seem like really close to the mic, and then you're like, it just feels very intimate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can hear like the pitter patter of their feet. You can hear just these very I don't know how they mixed it, but it was just great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and I felt very involved into the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to say too, I even loved the soundtrack that's used in the film.
Soundtrack is awesome.
Every song that is chosen for the film has a purpose for being there. I think of the song Blue Velvet that gets used throughout the film and is titled, the film's title is after the song. It has a purpose for being there.
Mm-hmm.
Even the song at the end of the movie that closes out the movie Mysteries of Love.
And
like, yeah. Well, I was going to say Mysteries of Love and how, Jeff tells Sandy, like, oh, you're a mystery. I like you.
Yes.
And having this whole, the song lyrics talk about like, love is a mystery. It's this unknown thing, but when you get it, that's when the mystery's been solved, right? And mystery solved at the end of the film. Love conquering all at the end as well. Like there's just this purpose for the song being there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Frank has a quote where he says, "My love, do you like love letters? My love letter to you was a bullet from a gun."
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this whole shootout scene, and while the shootout scene is happening, a song called "Love Letters" plays. Like it's it's just intentionality after intentionality, and I really appreciate that. And I also just have to say, I think that goes into the awesome direction that David Lynch executes here. He has such a unique vision and an incredible way of telling stories. And he brings you into these universes that he creates so easily and is able to articulate his story insanely well. Yeah. And I appreciate it, man. I really like it.
Yeah, and in regards to, we kind of talked about a lot of the symbolism of the film, but literally just the plot of the film, I liked it.
Yeah.
It kept me engaged the entire time. It was kind of, like you said, it's really easy to follow. I think that's why it might be one of his best ones to visit. I just thought, they did enough to keep you really engaged in asking questions of the ear, how that connects, what's the deal with the husband, what's the deal with Dorothy, how does she play into all this? I don't know, the way that they had set up the universe and set up the stakes here, I just think it was great, and the story super engaging.
Yeah.
I really liked the whole idea of the corrupt cop. I liked how Frank was not only, you know, a scumbag, but he had that alter ego that he would use to the cops. So, you know, he had like an in with a cop, and then he would get the drugs while also killing the other drug dealers. So they would have
No competition.
He'd gain more drugs and more power.
Yeah.
And it was all just super, you know, smart
Mhm.
and super interesting. I just think the plot it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy the writing here as well. I love that Dennis Hopper just goes for it
He does.
and, you know, goes over the top. And I don't know. I look at the film and I think about if Frank as a character were to not be as over the top, I'm not sure if it would work.
No.
Honest.
It might dive into the whole idea of like, because he's so over the top that it's like, okay, like this guy's trash.
Yeah.
From the moment you see him to the moment he dies, he's trash. And if it wasn't so over the top, you might like almost start to maybe like, oh, like if he wasn't as trash and he didn't do some of the things that he did, maybe you'd be like, oh, this life kind of looks cool. I mean, he's just hanging out with friends and he's drinking all the time. Like, what's so wrong with that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that they did it so over the top because, no, this is not a life you want to live. This is not anything anyone should aspire to.
Yeah.
And I think David Lynch makes that clear
Mm-hmm.
to the audience.
Mhm.
He's like, no, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is terrible. And if you follow this life, well, in the situation of Frank, I mean, he literally gets his head blown off.
Yeah.
And it's all that was coming to him. You know what I mean? You get trash or you give trash, you're going to get it right back.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that they kind of you have him over the top.
Yeah.
Because I don't want, I don't, and it would be terrible to display a message of, yeah, look at this life.
Yeah.
Look at it. He's just having fun, you
Yeah.
know? But no.
Yeah. I like whenever people use that argument for films like Goodfellas or, a film like The Wolf of Wall Street or something like that. And, all the things that go on in those movies and the absurdity and insanity of all of them. And people are like, that's my favorite movie. I want to be like that person. And I'm like,
Bro, did you watch the movie?
yeah. And I'm like, you didn't understand it, did you? That movie is about how you shouldn't be doing this stuff. Look at what it gets him in the end.
Right.
Like Ray Liotta's character in Goodfellas ends up becoming a rat and like has to go into witness protection because he couldn't handle it. You know, and same thing with like Jordan Belfort's character and all that stuff. Like, it's the stuff that is shown to you to show you that this is a bad guy. You shouldn't want to do this stuff. And if you do, maybe you got some inner looking to do.
Yeah, if you do, you're on the wrong side of town, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I liked it.
Lastly, I'll say I really, really enjoyed the cinematography to this film.
Yeah.
I feel like the cinematography just makes this movie so timeless.
Mm.
I love the use of like old cars and diners and the coloring of certain things, the way shots are framed, the use of lighting in a lot of areas too. Like I love how like whenever you go into the apartment building, like the only sources of light are those little like wallflowers and like even like without with the absence of that light, like it feels eerie. And like even like the light that's used in Dorothy's apartment and all that stuff, it's very sparingly used and it feels perfect. I just love the look of this film as well.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you 100%.
Yeah. But that's about it for what did work for me
as well.
here.
Yeah.
All right. Who wins this movie?
Man, I've got to give it to Kyle MacLachlan.
Okay.
I think he does a pretty good job at playing this understated yet observant and, kind of taking life by the handlebars kind of guy where he's just in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Dennis Hopper too. He's kind of the thing that's like the anchor here.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you're doing Dennis Hopper.
Yeah. I don't know. When I think about this movie, I think of him, man, and it's unfortunate because Dennis Hopper's character is a freaking piece of trash. But when I think about this movie, I'm gonna be thinking about Heineken, F that crap, or like anything that he says. I'm just like, dude, it's funny, man. It's hilarious. It's absurd.
I might be thinking about Isabel Rossellini though when she's up there singing.
Honestly, she does kill it too.
She really does.
She really does put in a performance that is awesome, and she's able to do this like facial acting where she can portray such sorrow and like also such euphoria, and it's interesting. I think that's maybe why Jeff gets so enthralled with her is because there's just this like mystery behind her, and you
Mhm.
can never tell like if she's ever truly happy or if there's some sadness
she's
that
gonna-
may like linger behind.
Yeah, if she's gonna kill you with the knife or if she's gonna make you get undressed,
Yeah.
you know, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What are some themes for this movie?
Some themes, and this is a hard one for me because I kind of ended it feeling like, what did I watch here? You know, how did the birds tie in?
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we've alluded to it throughout this whole thing of just saying, you know, love conquers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had
But
written
yeah,
down.
what you have, I think, is brilliant.
I had written down utopias all have their underbellies,
Yeah.
and you know, in reference to like the first shot of the film being shown this, you know, utopia of a town. It's
Mhm.
you know a town where nothing could go wrong, white picket fences, all that stuff, you know, sleepy suburbia, and then getting that shot of just what's under the surface there and all this violence and chaos of these beetles and nastiness and all that stuff, and then looking to the end of the film and seeing, you know, the robin and knowing that that's a symbol or an image for love,
Mm-hmm.
and it, you know, eating the beetle at the end is just the perfect bookend to this story.
Right.
And I had one of the videos that I had sent you is titled "Why Blue Velvet is Lynch's Portrait of American Society" by a channel called Screen 4, and the creator of that video brings up the point that you know, that scene where Jeffrey is crying, he recognizes the wrong that he did to Dorothy in that scene and is very upset by it because he recognizes that he's no better than Frank in that instance. And there's a lot of themes in here in this movie in regards to like darkness and lightness, and Frank is always talking about now it's dark, and whenever the film, you know, ends, a lot of light gets introduced, specifically like with the transition, it, you know, fades to white and everything's very overexposed and
Mhm.
airy looking. The creator of that video had written down, the robins of the light can kill the roaches of the darkness, but not without tasting that darkness first. And I had listened to that quote and I was like, wow, that is pretty profound. And
Right.
I really enjoyed that quote there, and I thought that hit the nail on the head with
Right.
this movie.
And it kind of, you know, tries to answer the question of like, well, why is there darkness in the world?
Exactly.
You know, and kind of can get back on to creation, but it's like, you know, if everything was good,
Mm-hmm.
would we deem it as that?
As good. Or
If
would,
everything you had was sweet, would you really want it?
would there be
or-
sweet anymore?
Yeah, would it, you know, it is a question. Like, if everything was so good in your life, then how would it be?
Mhm.
You know, would we deem our lives as great?
Yeah.
And it's a question because, like, if you don't know if you don't know the horribleness of the world, then how can you look up towards
And
the good?
and appreciate the good things,
Right.
or want the good things if you haven't experienced the lows,
Right.
or seen what the lows can be.
Right. In a very, you know, crude example, it's like eating the same food every day.
Mm.
You know, you might have thought, oh, it's so good, but after a while, you're gonna get sick of it.
Yep.
And we don't live in a perfect society, you know, so we don't know if our lives are totally good, well, I think they even touch on it in The Matrix, where they're like, well, the first simulation was a utopia,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work. You
Yeah.
guys don't like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's it might be an answer of like, well, there's got to be some kind of darkness so we can understand and appreciate and to see the value of the good stuff, the light stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to be there. You have to dip your toes in there, but you can't get overwhelmed and consumed by it.
Mm. Yeah. I like
Interesting.
that.
It's interesting. It's way more profound than you initially think.
Yeah.
But it really just leads back to like, why are we created and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
All right. Well, what are we rating this?
I'm gonna give this one a 7.
Okay.
Because I enjoyed it. It might go up with more rewatches. It even went up as we were talking just because I appreciated all the knowledge that you brought to this. But yeah, 7 for me.
Okay. I originally had rated this an 8 when I watched it, and then a second rewatch moves it up to a 9.
Wow.
So I really like this movie. I don't know if it's my favorite one. I think Mulholland Drive might hold that spot for me in David Lynch films, but again, I haven't seen all of his movies yet. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie.
That's
I think it
exciting.
has a lot to offer. It has a lot to unpack, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I am excited that you liked it, and was just really curious to see what you guys were going to think about it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get his thoughts on it if he ever does watch it. I don't know.
yeah.
I hope he does. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of the episode, you guys. So if you stuck all the way to the end, we appreciate you. Leave us a like and a comment on the YouTube channel if you are watching here with us on YouTube. If you're watching here on YouTube, you might as well subscribe as well.
Yeah.
That lets you guys know that we're uploading videos, and it also lets you guys know when those videos go up if you hit the bell notification.
Mm-hmm.
Those videos, our video podcasts usually go up around Wednesdays at 9 o'clock, 9:15ish. And if you have that bell notification on, you'll get notified immediately when that thing is uploaded. And if you're subscribed, those will always be in your subscription box as well.
That's what I'm talking about.
So if you're liking the stuff, if you are enjoying what we're doing, again, leave us a like and a comment. Let us know what you're liking. Or if you're listening to us on the audio platforms, leave us a rate and review. Be honest in your review. We appreciate all criticism, whether it be constructive or deconstructive. We want to make the show as good as possible for you guys. And in order to do so, we need to know if what we're doing is working or if we need to change some stuff up. It does help out if you guys do that. You can always reach us at our methods of contact in every episode description, which is our Instagram, our Letterboxd accounts, and our email. Use those platforms to either, recommend us movies, reach out to other people who are, following, the pages and stuff like that, and get in contact with other film lovers and stuff,
Mhm.
or, use those platforms to leave us criticisms and stuff like that as well, and let us know what you guys are thinking.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I believe it is your pick next, Nick, right?
Yes, and I'm ready. Oh gosh, this film has such a place in my heart. Honestly,
I'm excited. This is gonna be a rewatch for me.
and it's so interesting that it's one of my favorite. I'm just gonna say it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it just came out.
Yeah, this year.
Literally this year, 2022. It was Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Yeah.
Now you probably have heard about this film,
Yeah.
audience. It made a pretty big buzz.
Mm-hmm.
It
Which is interesting because when it first released, it went under the radar
It
real
did.
hard.
It did.
And then it had a big resurgence.
It did. Because I think, and that's kind of the whole narrative of, superhero movies coming in and taking all the showtimes away from
Yeah.
stuff like this that really deserves to be in the spotlight.
In the limelight, yeah.
Because this movie's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's one of the most unique multiverse movies that I've ever experienced. It's also
Same.
got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of family drama that I think is really grounded in reality in such a wild script, a
Mhm.
wild movie. It's a showcase of what you can do with not a big team. I mean, I will get into it more next week, but the team wasn't that big.
Yeah.
And it's just all around just a fantastic, phenomenal movie. And I probably will cry on the podcast. I know AB did it.
Yeah.
I probably will too. I mean, this really affected me when I watched
Yeah.
it, man.
Yeah.
It got me to on Apple they had a deal where you pay $30 and you get I didn't even say it's directed by the Daniels,
Yeah.
which two brothers named Daniel. So
Mhm.
the Daniels. They have another movie called Swiss Army Man, and it was a bundle with both of them. And I was like, yeah, I'd been meaning to watch Swiss Army Man. I heard a lot about it. Don't really know. Kind of weird, but whatever. So I bought it, downloaded it, watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I was like, this is incredible. I've got to go back. And then I watched Swiss Army Man. I freaking love that one too. I'm like 2 for 2 for these guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just ready.
Yeah.
I freaking love this movie, and I've been wanting to rewatch it. So
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie when you recommended it to me. And I was at Walmart randomly one day, and I was looking. Any store I ever go to, gotta go to the movie
movies,
section.
always.
And I go look in the movie section at Walmart, and sometimes they got some pretty cheap stuff. And I saw the cover for my version of Everything
it's so
Everywhere, All
cool.
at Once, and it's all the googly eyes
Yeah.
everywhere. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I know that this is a pretty big part of the film. And I looked at the price for the 4K Blu-ray, and it was cheaper than the regular version of the film. And I was like, I
So-
gotta get it,
like,
dude.
all
Like,
right.
that's perfect. And it comes with the digital too. Like, boom, take
Yeah.
that. And one of my friends was here in town from Texas, and Alexa and I we'd heard a lot about the movie from you and a couple other people, and I had talked to people who had watched the movie and they were like, "Oh man, like that movie made me cry. It made me laugh. It made me happy. It made me sad." Like, and I was like, "Man, well, like I'm wondering what I'm gonna expect from this movie." The only thing I know is that it's a multiverse movie about an immigrant family,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as I put that movie on, I was enticed from the beginning to end. I was crying at rocks, like.
They see, yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah, like
literal rocks.
Like I was so baffled by everything that was going on, but I was still like loving every second of the movie. And when I left it, I was just like, that was amazing. And I'm so excited to rewatch it and to just get that fulfillment, that maybe things I didn't catch on the first watch, and to go through it again and experience it again. And it really, really makes me want to watch Swiss Army Man.
Yeah.
The movie's been on my radar for a long time, and I've just never got around to watching it. And I remember originally seeing the trailers for it and seeing Paul Dano and
It's Daniel Radcliffe's,
yeah,
my opinion, his best role.
Yeah, and the funny thing is too, like he plays a dead guy.
He's a dead guy. I'm not gonna spoil it because it's such a unique film, and it's something you've got to experience because it's absurd,
Yeah.
but it's so very wholesome.
Yeah.
And I think they always do that. Well, I've only seen 2 of their films. I don't even know if they have any more. But of the 2 I've seen, they always have this very like otherworldly idea that they're trying to tackle, and yet they do it in such a human, grounded, realistic way.
Mm.
And they do it. They make me cry every time. Like I was listening to the soundtrack for Swiss Army Man, and if you don't know, it's kind of acoustic with Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe's voices being used.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about it where it was playing, and I got like this overwhelming sense of like I was just thinking about my life. I was thinking about Lisa. I was thinking about all those people I appreciated. I just like started crying because I was like, "This is freaking beautiful." Like,
yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
But it's this is why I love movies.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome. It makes
Yeah.
me feel things that no other medium will make me feel.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dive into Everything Everywhere All at Once next week alongside you and hopefully Abe.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a first watch for him too, so I'm really interested to see what he's going to think about the film.
Yes.
So, yeah, tune in next week and hear what we have to say about that film. Is it streaming anywhere?
Unfortunately, no. Not
Okay.
streaming anywhere. I
Well-
think it's like $15 to buy. Or
Okay.
I recommend a buy. It's great.
I recommend to buy as well or rent. Support this movie while you can, because
Yeah.
if you don't support movies like this, then these types of movies won't get made, and we'll get Fast and Furious 15
On the moon.
Yeah. So if you can support this film, we really recommend it.
Right.
I do. I know you do. Yeah. Tune in next week to hear what we have to say about that. As always, this has been the Film Bros Podcast. Thank you and good night.
Good night.